Hardy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is William Tincup with Recruiting Daily. I am super excited about our webinar today because I absolutely love this webinar series that we're doing with TextRecruit, where it focuses on practitioners, real, actual talent acquisition practitioners, and getting into the inner working of what they're doing. Some of it's about process, some of it's about how they use technology, but I absolutely love this series. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of house cleaning at the beginning of this, but we're going to have a wonderful webinar, as always, but it's very important. As you have questions, please, 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 add them into the chat window. So even as you see them, and as Natalie kind of brings different things to light, please add them in the chat window. We would love to get 100 questions because it's just kind of it makes for a better webinar, quite frankly. So let's get into some of the house cleaning at the beginning. Let's see here. All right, obviously you're all in listen-only mode, but we do want you to ask questions. We do want you, as you can, to tweet and use the RDaily hashtag. The recording, as all of our webinars are, will be live on Recruiting Webinars in about 24 hours. Usually it's sooner than that, but we like to manage expectations wisely. So, it's without a whole lot of fuss, we want to make sure that you understand that this is being sponsored by our wonderful friends and partners at TextRecruit. And we'll tell you a little bit more about them as we kind of go along, but we want you to know that they have a hand in putting this together, and we love them for that. We have on the phone today Natalie Breece, and she's with a company called thredUP. If you're not familiar with thredUP, it's actually fantastic. So go to thredup.com and put in your email and take a look around. It's actually really, really cool. And what Natalie's going to do today is kind of take you into her world, which is going to be kind of a wonderful, wonderful 45, 50 minutes of getting into someone else's world and understanding kind of what they're going through. So let's do this, and obviously thredUP, that's their Twitter handle if you'd like to add that to your tweets as well. Okay, so our agenda is pretty simple. We're going to kind of dig into kind of what her focus is, some of the challenges that she's going through, dig into the numbers, which I think you're all going to really like. And also, she's doing something different in this webinar than we've done in the past ones, where she's actually showing you some of the things that she actually uses, which I think is really fascinating. So let's do this. Let's get Natalie to tell you a little bit about both thredUP as well as herself. Natalie?
Well, thanks, William, for that excellent introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Breece. As he mentioned, I'm with thredup.com. And for those of you that aren't familiar with thredUP, I'll give you a little bit of background on what we do. So thredUP was founded in 2009. We've been around for about 8 years, and we're actually the largest online marketplace for secondhand women and kids clothing. So there's actually two different components to our business. The first side of the business is what we call our clean out business, and the other side is our resale business. So we have a really snazzy product that we call our clean out kit. What that is, it allows you to clean out and purge your closet in probably the most convenient way you've ever seen. And what that looks like is you go to our website, thredup.com, you request a clean out kit, we mail you a hamper-sized plastic polka dot bag. You throw your clothes in there with prepaid postage from us, give it to your mail carrier, and then we do the rest of the work. So what differentiates us from a lot of other secondhand resale companies is that we take the burden of really a lot of that work from you, where traditionally you'd have to go into a resale or a thrift store, they sort through your clothes, then they pay you out from there. We actually take all that work. You don't have to go anywhere. You give it to your mail carrier. We will sort through it. We will photograph it. We will purchase it from you, and then we put it on our website. And then that brings the resale portion of our business, which is, of course, we have 25,000 brands on our website. Believe it or not, about 1,000 new items go on the website every hour. So it can become a bit addicting. We have an app that you can download, and you're sitting in the carpool lane, or On the lunch break, you can shop, and there's new stuff every hour. So as a company, we have about 1,000 employees. We're still privately held. We have 4 distribution centers. We have been solely e-commerce until this year, when we opened our first 3 brick and mortar retail stores, which has been really exciting for us. And of course, a B2C company. And just to give you some background on me, I've been in the recruiting space for about 10 years, both in large corp and with startups. And my team today at thredUP consists of 8 recruiters. 4 of those recruiters sit on our distribution side, where they're actually sitting on the ground in the distribution centers and recruiting our hourly workforce. I have 2 technical recruiters, 2 corporate recruiters, 1 who handles the recruiting for our hourly folks and salary folks in our retail stores, and then also a recruiting operations coordinator and people operations coordinator, which I'll talk about here in a bit.
Nice. And so your years in whatever, high volume, hourly, etc. How many years you've been doing that type of recruiting?
So I've done high volume in a variety of different ways for the majority of my career. I started out in college recruiting, which was very high volume, internships and full-time hiring, and then moved into high volume sales. And then this is actually my first exposure into warehouse specifically. I had done retail before, but the warehouse piece was new, and I got to say it's a challenge every day, and really the bread and butter of my job, and a lot of fun.
Too funny. When you talk to folks that work just the corporate side of things, do you find you have a lot in common, or is it a Mars versus Venus type thing?
Well, I think recruiting is recruiting at the end of the day, right? Like, we're all kind of going after the same goals. I think where people's jaws kind of drop is when I tell them we're hiring on the hourly side like 100 people a week, which and then when I go through our numbers for the month, people are just completely floored. But it's different, it's fast paced, but it's maybe not as strategic when it comes to the day-to-day hiring. Of course, our processes are strategic, but day-to-day, it's moving really quickly, and it really is a lot of fun. But recruiting, I think, across the board is challenging, no matter what side you're on.
It's exactly right. Executive search, staffing, RPO, and it turns out there's always a challenge.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Here's a quote from your co-founder.
Yep, that's our CEO, James Reinhart. And we really like to look at thredUP as our opportunity to inspire a new generation to think secondhand first. So he's saying here, we're transforming the way people think about secondhand, and we have the capacity and the energy and the vision to make that a part of people's lives for 20, 30, and 50 years. I think we're all a little bit more socially conscious than we were before, and we also, I think, want to save money where we can. We want to get more for less, and so thredUP is allowing us to do both of that. We're keeping clothes out of landfills, but we're also helping you save money by reducing the cost of clothing by about 80%. So really fun business to be in.
It's funny to think about it as, I mean, it's recycling in some ways, where we, people that are very conscientious about recycling, things that go through their house, but then they might go out to the mall and buy everything new.
Yeah, it is. It's funny when you put it that way. And then when James and the other co-founders developed thredUP, they had done some research in speaking with women, and found that the majority of women you talk to only wear about 50% of what's in their closet, if that. So the rest of it sitting there collecting dust, you might as well repurpose that, upcycle it to somebody else that could use it, and then get money back to buy some new stuff too.
Well, the funny thing is that as I'm laughing at that, my wife has crept her closet over into my closet. so I absolutely do understand what you're saying. Alrighty, let's get into the focus.
Excellent. So really, the focus here is going to be on how we're leveraging text messaging for high volume hiring. So that's really where the majority of our hiring is today. And we're leveraging it in a couple of different ways. We are using it to increase the speed in our communication. So we are, I think everybody knows today, people are just on their phones constantly, and texting is one of the easiest ways for you to ignite a conversation or have a quick conversation versus having to utilize email along the way. Also, with the hourly workforce that we're working with, they just aren't on email. So if we're able to get in front of them via text, that's the way that we've found is just a lot easier and more efficient. You can have a lot more touch points, and it doesn't feel as daunting. You know, nobody likes those super long email threads that you have to kind of weed through. So through text, you can send quick messages, you get a quick response, and we're able to move on. It allows us to add candidates to our funnel and remove them pretty quickly. And we also are able to use text messaging throughout the entire candidate funnel. As I mentioned previously, my team is comprised of both recruiters and recruiting operations and people operations. So we leverage the text messaging across the board, from inviting a candidate to phone screen with us and to come on site with us, all the way through having them complete a drug screen and a background check and go through all their onboarding paperwork and welcoming them to the team. We actually are also now using text messaging within our HR team as well to check in with folks and to make announcements to company-wide announcements if we're having, you know, weather situations in the DCs or different things that need to be broadcast across the entire organization. It works for scheduling. I think a lot of folks today, a lot of recruiters are using scheduling tools. Our team uses Calendly. So it's easy to integrate a link to Calendly in their text message where a candidate can click on that. Calendly is mobile optimized as well, so they're able to schedule right then and there. And then we'll also spend some time looking at some of the templates that work well for us. We definitely have found a lot of success with text messaging that has a specific call to action, and also recently adopted keywords and short codes for applications, which has been really successful for us as well.
So a couple of things that come to mind. Is there texting etiquette? Meaning, you know, like an email, sometimes you judge the person consciously or subconsciously based on grammar and based on, you know, things that they bold or underline, or, you know, things that they use, sentences, structure, you know, all that type of stuff. And whether or not I think that's a good thing or not, I'll put my own personal biases aside. But I know that we do it. I know that that's a thing. I know that there's a bias that kind of gets played out there. Is there anything like that with texting for you and your team?
Yeah. That is a really great question, because even for the recruiters, it's a different world. Because when you're sending a text, we're limited in the number of characters that we can send. We're restricted to 140 characters. So it's just like sending a tweet. You're going to have to abbreviate. You're going to have to be very succinct. And then the candidates, I think, because they're receiving a text from us, and texting just is innately more casual, they sometimes are more casual in their response. And we're okay with that. We're a startup, so it's a fairly casual environment for us as it is. I think we do. We'll pick up on certain nuances though with candidate communication if it comes across, you know, like really unprofessional, which we've had happen. We definitely have stories on our team of things that have come back that have been a little bit, you know, inappropriate. But for the most part, I think we're pretty casual in our communication to them, and for the most part, like they respect that tone, and I think it helps us in candidate engagement. So we haven't had a lot of issues with the dialect being too inappropriate or too unprofessional.
Right. I was just thinking years ago, I thought that it would be cool to do a novel in all texting, like using all text. But, you know, it's like, I'm not sure people would actually really understand it, but maybe they'd get some of it because, you know, everyone shortens things, and sometimes we use things that we think are standard, and maybe they're not standard. Maybe they're just standard with our own, you know, crew or friends or whatever. I did have a second question on this right here. Are thank you notes via text a thing?
We do get them, and I think thank you notes in general, that's kind of dying. Like, people just don't do it as much. And I think because it's not as frequent when you get it, like, people really appreciate it. I've actually got it's few and far between, but I'll still get handwritten thank you notes, which is like, you know, really today is almost obsolete, and it's great when you see people do that. I think a thank you in any fashion is appreciated. I think another component too to that's really great with the texting is that because I think text messaging just feels a little bit more personal than email, and so our candidates, even after they start working for us, will text the recruiters and say, thank you so much, I love the job, or hey, can you help me through this situation? So we're able to then continue a relationship with them, which I think is helpful. We obviously have to limit that so that we can focus on bringing more people in the door. But
Right.
it gives those candidates, they feel that connection, which I think is really helpful for us in both candidate engagement and retention.
That's awesome. Quick last thing before we go into the next slide is because you all have a consumer side, and now that you're talking to people via text, which is, like as we already stated, very, very personal, is there any connection back over to the consumer brand? Like, do they ever bring stories of things that they've done as a buyer? Like, is there any mix and mingle is what I'm thinking about between
Yeah,
your consumer side and and as you're having these personal communiques with folks?
yeah, great question. So what's interesting about us being a B2C company is that really anyone who's a customer could become an employee and vice versa. So we always keep that in the back of our mind, and we actually have a lot of alignment between our employer brand and our consumer brand, but we have started to leverage text messaging with our customer base as well, especially with now that we have the brick and mortar stores. One thing that we're doing is we want to leverage, a lot of times people that are customers would be a great fit as an employee. So within our stores, we have stylist cards. So if somebody comes and shops the store, they will get a card with the stylist name on it. And then we've actually added our keyword and short code at the bottom of those. So if somebody has a great shopping experience and is interested in joining the company, they have that information. So our keyword is thredUP. And they just text that to us, and it directs them. We have an entire sequence that will direct them to the corresponding recruiter, depending on what location or what opportunity they're interested in. So we're leveraging that in across retail, e-commerce, and then with referrals and so on, because we have a lot of customer data that we can pull, and so we've used that customer data to help us in recruiting also.
Oh, that's fascinating. We actually have a question. I'd like to stop down and use it. It's what would be the legal limitations that we may have to use texting to candidates?
So we basically use the same parameters that we would in anything else. Like, you're obviously not going to ask any questions related to race, religion, gender, age, transportation, things like that.
Right.
But for the most part, like our general counsel has not had any issues with us using text messaging, as long as we're sticking within the guidelines of what we would ask if it was verbally over the phone or in email.
Okay.
And then we also, just one more point on that, William, is we do give them the opportunity to opt out. So if we send a text message to somebody and their response back is that they're not interested, the texting tool will actually automatically respond with a generated message that says, if you're not interested, please type stop, and then it'll stop any further communication to that candidate.
And this is an ignorance thing on my part. The do not call list, is that also do not text?
Yeah, basically,
Okay.
it's the do not,
So
the stop is the new do not call list.
do not communicate to this group of people. All right, so obviously, I mean, all kidding aside, so that list, you just can't communicate to them whether or not it's calling or texting. All right, all right,
Yeah.
good. All right, so let's get into the challenges and dig into kind of your real meaty challenges that you and your team have to face every day.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, high volume means, high volume. So we our distribution centers are hiring around 20 to 25 new people every week across all four. So it's around 100 new employees a week. So that presents a whole lot of challenges one, managing that type of pipeline, because if you need to hire 20 to 25 people, you need a pipeline of 75 to 100 people easily. So and that was one of the reasons why we initially had adopted text messaging, was because with that volume, it was really becoming difficult to manage email communication and all of those different threads going on simultaneously. And text was allowing us the ability to send out large campaigns. We were blasting candidates all at once if we were interested in having them do a phone interview. Then we were able to manage the back and forth conversation a little bit easier through platform that allows us to do that. So the big challenge is one, that type of volume and just managing that pipeline. And then in addition to that, to throw in a whole nother wrench, we decided to open stores. So we opened actually 3 stores in the matter of 3 or 4 months, but we had to staff from the ground up. So with that, of course, we have a lot of communication going back and forth. We're doing a ton of outreach, and we're leveraging different sourcing platforms as well to do that. So we're able to kind of streamline all that communication into one place. And then as we do ongoing hiring, both seasonal in the stores, and then full-time in the stores, as well as full-time, and then we also do part-time in the distribution centers, it's easy for us to continue those conversations with folks ongoing. But one thing that we do that helps with that is we have a great integration with our applicant tracking system, which we use Lever and are able to actually pull CSVs from Lever that will have the entire list of candidates that have applied that we have an interest in phone screening, can upload them in for a text campaign and send it out all at once. So from a speed and efficiency standpoint, text messaging has really helped us to manage that volume.
Nice. So because you already mentioned your Lever, which is probably both a little bit of your CRM and your ATS, what are the other components of your tech stack? Like, what do you all use primarily for sourcing or assessment or screening? Is there any other stuff that's kind of your bulletproof part of your stack?
Yeah, so we use LinkedIn, I think, like the rest of the recruiting world does. We also have seen a lot of success with Indeed, especially with our hourly workforce, and we use ZipRecruiter as well. And then, as I mentioned before, using some Calendly or other scheduling software, Mixmax, etc. So, and all of those have worked pretty well with texting, because we're able to pull the information that we need, which is the phone numbers. We can sometimes, like I mentioned, the CSVs will help for us to upload all that information and send out mass campaigns.
Right. Well, we have 2 questions actually from the audience, and I appreciate both of them. One is from Aaron. If you were to maximize your reach, how many candidates could you reach in 1 hour?
So that's a great question, Aaron, and we actually have tested this a little bit. One of my recruiters will tell you, I gave her a whole lot of work one night when we decided to test this, and we pulled about 500 applications from our ATS, and this was both folks that had recently applied and folks that had applied in the past, but just for whatever reason didn't move forward in our interview process, and we decided to upload a CSV and reach out to all of them. So we did that. We had, out of the 500, probably about 150 responses in about 15 minutes. And
wow.
Yeah, so I think probably over the course of an hour, she had interacted with probably close to 200 candidates, which it would be so difficult to do with any other communication channel. But yeah, pretty incredible.
Nice.
And she, while on one hand of the coin, she was completely overwhelmed with the work. On the other side, she was like so thankful that she was able to increase her pipeline in 20 minutes.
So Aaron asked a follow-up question, which I think you probably already answered, but I want to make sure. Does your ATS integrate with your texting software? If so, can you give any recommendations? So I think he's really trying to solve for, okay, how does it integrate? Because I think he probably heard you say Lever as your ATS, but just how does it from a process flow?
Yep. So I think the best piece of the integration that we have there is that that there is a Chrome extension. So what that allows is whenever we're in our ATS, which is Lever, and we're in a candidate profile, it will highlight that candidate's phone number. We can click on it, and then we can send them a message right then and there. And then all of those messages are captured then within the texting platform. So that's a big piece. And then unfortunately, the entire flow of the communication is not within that person's profile, but we're capturing that all in another platform, which helps us for tracking purposes.
Right. Right, right, right. So Anna asked the question around the appropriate length of text.
So short and sweet. I mean, we are restricted by 140 characters, and I think that's a good thing because I think people are just going to be um, a lot more responsive to something that's pretty short. Generally, we in our first outreach are going to say something like, "Hi, so and so, got your resume. We're really interested in speaking with you. Please reply yes if you're available to talk." Something like that. And then from there, we'll start a conversation. But I think particularly that first outreach needs to be really succinct and direct.
And we'll go backwards with Jason asked the question, how do you make sure you're compliant with gaining permission to text applicants?
So we don't ask permission on the front end, but they are given the opportunity to opt out.
Right,
So, and these are candidates that have we have gained their phone number through
right.
they've applied to us. So that I think in essence they've given us permission to reach out because they've applied.
That's right. So different than sourcing. So if we were just sourcing candidates, so we would go to find them somewhere on the internet, and you found their phone number in text, which you could still do,
Uh-huh.
as long as you give them, I don't know the rules actually. I know canned spam, you can email them as long as you give them an out, but I'm sure it's probably similar with texting.
Yeah, I think
But
as long
these
as
are
there's an
people,
opt out
that's
feature,
right,
it's fine.
that's right. So, but these are people that have applied. That's a great delimitator. These are people that have actually raised their hand and gone through the application process.
Mm-hmm. And some
Yeah,
way or the other, they either applied to our applicant tracking system, they applied to a posting that we had in another job board, or they were referred to us by an existing employee.
right, right, right. Sam asked the question, what level of personalization is best? So, like, now we asked the question, Anna asked the question of, what's the appropriate length? And Sam's asking the question of, okay, how personal do you get? And what's kind of the best practice in terms of personalization?
Yeah, so since we're trying to keep it fairly brief, we don't get into a lot of nitty gritty in their resume or things like that, and especially in that initial text. We do always personalize with their name and the location that we're interested in them for. So, and then we generally just keep it to that. We'll say, I think there's ways you can personalize without having to add specifics in their from their background. Like we'll just say, their name, we received their resume on this day, and we're really interested in speaking with them for this position. And we leave it kind of basic in that way.
Very good, very, very good. All right, let's go on. I love it when I quote myself, so I actually love this slide. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this before. Like people today are just really more tied to their phones than they are to the computer. I think um, a lot of people don't even have a personal computer anymore. I think they have a phone, they may have a tablet, but not a lot of people have computers. So we want to take advantage of that. We want to get in front of these folks where they're paying attention and kind of capture them the easiest way we can. And that's texting is really that channel today. Not only is it allowing you to engage them in a more personal way, but it also elicits a lot faster response because for some reason people in most cases feel more urgency to respond to a text message than they do to respond to an email. So I think it just you're really leveraging kind of human behavior in that way.
Well, very good. Let's get into the stats. I think this is going to be really eye-opening for folks.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a lot of places where you can get a 75% response rate. I know that we haven't seen in a lot of other places, but so just over in the month of October, we hired about 211 people, and that was across our 4 distribution centers. And so one thing I like to do, because we're hiring at this volume, is to constantly kind of check in with these folks and find out what's working well, what's not working, and why do they come to work at thredUP and why they like it. So I sat down a couple weeks ago with about 40 of the recent hires that we had and really dug into what about our process was unique and what led them to join our team. And it was overwhelming that they said that the ease of the interview process and the ease of communication with texting was kind of a game changer for them. As I've mentioned, we're working really closely with an hourly workforce. And these are individuals that need a paycheck. They're looking for a job, and they're going to, if they're looking for a job on Monday, they most likely will have a job on Friday or the following week. So we have to move quickly with them, and we got to get in front of them as fast as we can. So they all mentioned that the fact that they were able to communicate with the recruiter via texting was really helpful. Also, the fact that we would give them a heads up if we were going to send them an email. Hey, just make sure you check your inbox today. We just sent you your application. Or make sure you complete your background check form. We were doing all of that via text so that they knew when they needed to check their email, and they got updates along the way as background check clears, as they're ready to start. And a lot of them actually said that that's why they came to they joined thredUP, is that we would just move so quickly, and we're very the communication was very fluid. And we've been using text messaging for about 6 months, and of course we've iterated on our process and our templates. But today, I think, are incredibly effective with it. We sent about 7,000 messages, and that was back and forth communication, about 3,000 unique messages in the month of October, and are averaging around a 50 to 75% response rate. And the particular message that I'll share with you today has a 75% response rate. And what we're seeing is the messages that have a really specific call to action are the ones that we have the most success with.
So I got a question around kind of the who you fight with for talent. Like if you're in the Valley and you work at Workday, and you're trying to recruit software engineers, you're in a battle with all the other people, all the other tech companies in the Valley. So just go ahead and throw a rock, and you can find another tech company looking for software engineers or full stack developers or whatever. Who do you perceive, or who do you know that you kind of go after, and you're fighting for talent with these types of people? What type, if not specifics, what types of firms are you fighting with?
Yep. So when we're talking about our distribution center employees, we're competing with all the other distribution centers. Big one I think we all know is Amazon, and they hire a lot this time of year, but there's a lot of big warehouses that we're competing for talent with. But we also compete with retail stores, both for our distribution centers and for our retail stores. That's another audience that we focus heavily on, because we're a clothing business, and although they are working in a distribution center environment, they're working with clothes all day. So we're competing with them and all the seasonal hiring that they're doing. We compete with fast food companies as well in the area. We compete with call centers. So they're not all direct competitors from a business standpoint, but definitely direct competitors when it comes to talent.
Okay. All right. Sarah has a great question here. Actually, all questions are great, but this one's particularly great. How many candidates did you communicate with to get 211 hires?
So we probably communicated, so we sent about 3,000 unique text messages last month, which those are the first outreach messages. Now, some of those folks are going to come back to us and say that they've already found a job, or they're not interested, or the shift doesn't work for them. So not all of those were candidates that were fully vetted, but that initial text message, we probably sent about 3,000. And then we're hiring probably close to 1 in 3 of the folks that we actually move through our process.
Wow, that is fantastic. What are some, Lacey asked the questions, what are some of the examples of the call to actions that have been successful?
Yeah, that's into our next slide there. But so I think anytime we have them respond with like a yes or no tends to work. So we'll say, hi, Sarah, we received your resume. We're very interested in speaking with you. Please reply yes if you're still interested in thredUP. And then they respond usually yes or no. If they say yes, then we move to the next point. We also will say, we're hiring for our first shift. Please reply yes if you're interested in that shift. Another one that's unique that we did recently and that had a really high response rate is one of the recruiters, as she's moving candidates closer to the first day and through onboarding, kind of came up with a cute one where she said, "You've cleared to start. Reply with woohoo if you're still available to start on Monday." and got a whole bunch that replied woohoo. So we try a lot of different stuff, but anything generally like yes or no is a really good one. Just asking a question that would require a response is the best
Right.
way to get engagement.
Right. One quick question on the 75% response rate. So first of all, and this is me asking, is this normal? And if this is normal, how do you make it better or more efficient?
Yeah, so this is pretty standard for us at this point, and I think that it's the messaging, and I think it's a part of it is our speed too to reach out to candidates. So we are living in text all day, every day, and so as we're getting applications, we are texting right away. So those are folks that we know are on the market right then and there, and we're getting a response right back. So I think it's because of our focus on trying to make sure we're reaching out to our active candidates as quickly as we can. And then again, the call to action was a suggestion that we had gotten from our account manager that made this a world of difference. And so we see really high response rates really across every part of the funnel.
That's fantastic. Oh my goodness. Sam asks a follow-up question for Sarah is what percent of these unique responses out of the 3,000 are positive?
The majority, I mean, I would say probably 65-70% of them are, because these are folks that we know are actively looking. The only time we generally would get one that's not interested is if it's a shift issue, or they found another job, or if we have the wrong number somehow. But usually, I would say the vast majority are positive.
Right. Okay. Good. Let's move on to the next slide here, because this is going to get interesting.
So here's an example of one of those really successful text messaging campaigns that we did. So this one is particularly for folks that have already gone through our interview process and we want to move forward with. So as you can see, it's very short and sweet. Congrats, you're ready to start a new career at thredUP on the 9th. Please check your email for all the info and text us back yes if you received it. Again, there's that call to action. Please make sure you text back if you received it. And this is one that we would send after they've come on site, they've interviewed with our team. We know we want to move forward with them. We do drug screen on site, so the next step that they would have to do is the paperwork and background check. And so this would start the beginning of the onboarding. But we really, at this point, we've already had they should be familiar with our text number. We've already started a conversation with them, and they're moving forward. And so candidates are really excited, and we get really quick responses to these, usually within 15 minutes.
But still, Mark just has two questions, and he asks, one of them is, are a high percentage of your first contacts text to people who have already applied or colder contacts? So I know that you already said that they had applied, but now I want to kind of take his question and kind of like, well, how long ago did they apply? Like, could we go back to somebody that applied like last year?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So anything in the ATS database is fair game.
Absolutely. So we definitely look at most of these recs that we're using text messaging for are evergreen recs. So we'll have candidates that have applied a long time ago, and we're constantly trying to reinvigorate our older pipelines. And it's easy to do that because we can, like I said, upload that CSV, send out a mass message that is personalized, and get response that way. So we do that quite often, actually, and we also use it for referrals too. So those are, I guess they're warm. They're not hot leads, but we will run referral contests, have people give us phone numbers for folks that they think they are interested or they think would be interested, and we'll text them as well.
Right. So Kayla asked the question, what texting software do you use? And I'll answer that. Kayla, they use TextRecruit, which is also the sponsor of this webinar and this webinar series. So as you're interested in kind of what Natalie's talking about, we did one with Jared at CDW, we did one with Sodexo. We've got a whole series of these where we basically interview practitioners and talk to them about text recruiting. because it's on everybody's mind, quite frankly. The people under 30, I will not say millennials, just prefer communications that are kind of where they are, and so it's on everybody's mind. And so this series is really rich. But your question, very simple: what texting software do you use? Is TextRecruit. And and great company, great leadership, just a great group of folks. And I think they've nailed it and got in front of some stuff here. So let's go on to the next question, which is, oh, it's the same. It's a similar question. It's what texting platforms do you find work best? What was your favorite? So let me twist that into, what was your first foray into text recruiting? First of all, if you can go back that far, how did you know you needed to get into it? What was that eye-opening, moment where you're like, I need to do something different? And how'd you start the process of text recruiting?
Yeah, so it kind of started out where a couple of the recruiters on the team had started texting candidates on their own, and they would try to call them. They wouldn't get it, they wouldn't be able to get a hold of them, so they started texting them to set up a time to chat. And as they were doing that, they started seeing like a much quicker response via a text message than an email or even a voicemail or phone call. So from there, it kind of, a light bulb went off, and I thought, like, there's got to be a software that does this. Somebody's got to have this. And so looked into it, found TextRecruit. As soon as they kind of demoed it for me, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is going to help us in so many different ways. And the pricing's great. So we took it on and have had tremendous success. Honestly, a lot of the recruiters on the team even say, like, I don't know how we did this without it before, and I couldn't imagine if we didn't have it anymore. And we've actually expanded the product offering with them too. So I mentioned that we're doing using the keywords and short codes, which they have a product called Text Apply, which came from another person on the team who was out at a restaurant and saw a keyword on a billboard and said, we should do that, where people can text thredUP to apply. And so as I started to look into it, I was like, I wonder if, TextRecruit offers something like this, and sure enough, they did. So we're using that now too, and just the combination of the two, they work seamlessly together through the same dashboard, which is really helpful. And honestly, it's a game changer. It's been a complete game changer for us.
So the text apply is just thredUP to 77052, and then boom, and it starts the process. Is
correct?
That?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What's really great about it is it does more than I thought it could. So when that candidate texts it thredUP, then what happens from there is they get an automated response. It says, hi, this is so-and-so. Thanks for your interest. Press or text 1 for distribution center, 2 for retail, 3 for corporate. Once they do that, then it has them type 1 for San Leandro location, and 2, and so on. And then once they do that, they get a personalized response back from the recruiter for that location, and that text message goes into the inbox of that recruiter, so they can immediately respond to it, and it's very personalized.
Oh, that's genius. I love it.
Yeah.
Sam asked a question. You might or might not know this, but if not, we'll get the folks at TextRecruit to ask. What are the countries that TextRecruit support?
Yeah, I have no idea. We operate solely in the United States, so I haven't had to ask that question.
Right. So Sam, what we'll do is we'll get the folks from TextRecruit to either text you or tweet to you or email you and get your response on that, because I don't know either, and I should know, but I don't know. Alrighty, so let's see here. I know we have a bunch of other questions. Let's get into them. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we have a bunch of questions to go through, so let's do that. How do you collect or review candidate feedback from those that you recruit via texting? Because candidate feedback, candidate engagement, candidate experience, these are all things that obviously are bantered about in the industry. And so you're using a different medium. How do you kind of get feedback via that new medium?
So we get feedback a couple of different ways. The first way is through our new hire orientation. So on their first day, they spend a couple of hours with us in orientation, learning more about the company. We give them kind of the lay of the land, and part of that is asking, how their experience was with recruiting and what we could do better. And so we get a lot of great feedback on the texting there, and you know, some helpful feedback too, about the cadence of when we send the messages or the time we send the messages and all that. So that's our first opportunity to get some really candid feedback. The other place we get feedback is our distribution centers do what we call new hire chat sessions, where they sit down with folks that have started within the past month, usually 2 to 3 weeks into their role, and ask them again, and using that platform of what would you change based on your experience either in recruiting and now that you're an employee too, with the supervisors and so on. So we're kind of gathering that in a couple of different points once they're on board as an associate.
Nice. So, this question is about how do you experiment with language contained within text. So this is kind of a, in email, you can do the split cell test, you can do all kinds of different things to just kind of see what resonates with folks. How do you either enable your team to try different things just to see what sticks, and how do you experiment?
So they try a lot of different things. We've tried more formal communication. We've tried more casual communication. We've tried, just different verbiage in the text messaging. So we're constantly testing that and then reviewing what the response rate looks like and how quickly people are responding. The nice thing is the platform, the text group platform, allows us access to see everybody's messages and the stats behind it. So there's a lot of best practice sharing going on. They have freedom to create the messaging that they think works best for them and their audience. But we'll change even certain things like time of day and when we send the messages, and whether we include the location or not. And we try a whole bunch of different things to see especially with the call to action. That's a big one too, and changing that up and seeing if it elicits a quicker or larger response.
Oh, very cool. Mark asked the question, are you using texting to recruit for other staff other than distribution? What about HR, admin, IT, finance, etc.? Like outside of the world that you're in, do you have any other kind of stories of success?
So we are using it now. We started with it as kind of a test for the distribution centers. Now we're using it for retail. We're also using it for our customer service team, which is our chat support and email support team. We have not yet tested it on some of our higher level positions. I assume it would work just as well, but those folks are still really responsive via email. So we haven't had a need to do that. But I think we probably will as we continue to see success with the other orgs that we've tested it in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lacey asked yet again another wonderful question. What kind of metrics / measurements does TextGroup provide to measure performance? I.e., can you get great reporting?
Yeah, we get excellent reporting. In fact, I have a call once a month with our account manager, and she puts together a deck for me with response time, our most successful campaigns, how many messages we sent, how many unique messages we sent, how many responses we got, which messages had the best overall success, and even we look at things like the time of day that we send messages to. So they are really great about providing us with a whole lot of different reports, and the one I'm most focused on is what the response rate is and how quickly folks are responding to us, because in this world we want to move folks into the interview process quickly, so response time is critical.
Yeah, it's built on speed. Everybody's got to be fast. You've got to be fast. They've got to be fast. Response has got to be fast. Great question here is, what advice would you give to recruiters and hiring managers that have they haven't been down this path yet? They know it's probably coming. They probably already see recruiters texting people, etc. So they know that it's coming, but they haven't started. They haven't started the process yet. What advice would you give those folks?
I think a big piece of advice would be, one, I think I wish we would have learned it earlier, was making sure that we are leveraging the call to action. I know I sound like a broken record on that, but that's so important to get a quick response. I also think to spend time thinking about what the entire communication flow should look like. I think is also important if you're going to use it throughout the entire candidate funnel, like we do. And then also, I think making sure that you're leveraging it in tandem with your ATS as much as you can. Like for us, using the Chrome extension really helps us save time, and thinking about ways that you can be really efficient. Like, you know, with those reports that your ATS is already providing to you. How can you use that, create semi-personalized messages, and touch a lot more candidates quicker? So I think those would be the biggest pieces of advice. Also, just try it. I'm confident you try it, you're going to love it.
So as it goes back to the reporting, and you kind of get these stats back, and has there ever been something that it floors you, like it just kind of hits you like, I have no idea that would work, or that time of day, are you kidding me, that works, or that day of the week, or something like that? Has there ever been something that just completely didn't feel like it felt right?
Yeah, well, I think some of it, like testing the different times of day has been really eye-opening. Like, just, you know, spending a little bit of time, and we can actually schedule our messages out so that we can have them go out later in the day if we want to. Like, having it go out at 5 o'clock, just the speed in which people respond to you because they're wrapping up their workday or may have already wrapped up their workday is really phenomenal. Like in that example that I gave of sending out about 500 messages, like to see that many people respond that quickly was really eye-opening. I think also, like, timing it around certain days of the week, we've seen a lot of success with too. We originally were shying away from really doing much on Fridays because we figure people are kind of checked out, but we're seeing more success with that, and I've actually had a lot of success with engaging folks on Fridays and having them interview on Mondays, and we've had really great candidates that way. So I think some of the preconceived notions that you have, you may be surprised by as you try something new.
Anything about the weekend? Do you have is there anything that's Saturday or Sunday, different hours on the weekend? Is there anything there for you?
So to be honest, we don't do a lot on the weekends. We just want to, you know, I want to give my team time to enjoy their weekend, and give folks the opportunity to enjoy their week. I think people are kind of turned off on the weekends anyways. They're watching football or spending time with their families. So we don't, but we definitely have a lot of success on Fridays, and then you can schedule messages and have them go out first thing Monday morning, which is great. Before work and after work are great times. Also, even the lunch hour too, because usually most folks, as soon as they sit down for lunch, first thing they do is pick up their phone. So those are the times that we see a lot of success.
So a question about templates. Did you when you first started, did you use a lot of the text recruit templates, or did you start kind of by building your own templates?
So they gave us some guidelines, but we built our own templates and then just iterated from there. And we create new templates all the time because we like to be able to capture. We'll build out a template, and then we'll create a campaign around that template, and we like to review the results of it. So we're constantly making new ones, but we kind of started from what we knew was working and built from there.
Right. So I got another question from Mark. If you send a scheduled text, say 6:30 p.m., the candidate responds, now what happens? Does the recruiter get a notification and takes over for the auto send texting?
Yes. So we schedule that very first text, but then everything after that is going to appear in the recruiter's text. It's basically like an inbox for text messages. So they can respond to that at any point. They can do it immediately. They can do it the next day. But it will sit there in their inbox until they respond to it.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Have you noticed anything in terms of response time? So in Mark's question at 6:30 p.m., say the recruiter is on or whatever, or, you know, and they do respond. Is that better than a response the next morning, or does it matter?
We like to respond right then and there if we can, because that's an active candidate that's engaged, and so we will respond. And then we may, if we're going to schedule a call with them, may schedule it for the following day. But we like to get back to them as quick as we can.
Yeah, I think that's
especially
right.
targeted outreach.
I think that's hourly. I think that's the high volume deal. The faster you get back to them, the more engaged they feel that you are. So there's something. Whereas corporate, not as big of a deal.
Right.
I know that you mentioned that you have some brick and mortar stores now. Have you noticed anything different in recruiting for brick and mortar than a lot of like your distribution or some of the online positions, etc.?
Yeah, we handle that a bit differently because the interview process is different for those positions. So generally, when we hire for our retail stores, our first step is we will do a phone interview or a video interview with those candidates. So we're leveraging text with that group more for scheduling purposes. So we'll send out a Calendly link, letting them know we're interested, and then for them to reply once they've scheduled. And there's probably a little bit less back and forth dialogue than there would be with the distribution centers, but we use it a lot for that initial outreach and for scheduling.
So last question, because this thing blew by and I need to look at the clock. It's like 2 minutes left. Are your unsubscribe/stops about the same time when you text at those off times, 5 p.m. Fridays, etc.?
No, not really. I mean, we don't get a lot of stop. The stop messaging is usually folks that maybe applied a long time ago, and so they're not interested at this point. But we haven't seen any correlation to the opt-outs in a certain time of day or day of the week.
Gotcha. So, ladies and gentlemen, that hour just blew by. First of all, I need to thank Natalie. Natalie, you're wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story and your expertise with everyone. I absolutely appreciate you. I know you're busy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Got other things on your plate today. And secondly, I'd like to thank TextRecruit as our sponsor. Again, without TextRecruit, we wouldn't be able to do this stuff. So, thank you to both of you. Thanks to everyone that listened today. I appreciate you allowing us to invade your space. And again, webinar will be ready in about 24 hours and live, and so you can go and review it there. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.